Hi, my name's Doug Vogt from the Diehold Foundation, and this is video Series 1, Part 11. It's actually the second part of Part 10, and you should see Part 10 first before you see this one. It'll explain more leading up to it. But this video will cover a short recap of what I showed in Part 10. Where the electrons come from, and that's needed to know if you're going to figure out time travel or what's really going on in the universe. Making sense of the universe and what it's all about. Again, geared to, the clues are really in the electrons and X-rays and stuff like that that we see. You'll see what I mean. Further proof, we also exist in another time-space relationship or another dimension. Many people have asked me, what is man's position in this universe? What is life? What is death? Is there such a thing as death of the soul? And so this video might be the most important for the average person who doesn't really care or thinking about the Ice Age and Bullard-Reversal or Nova, but on a personal basis level that they can relate to. And then my personal family history, myself, my wife, and my son and his friend were time travelers, and you'll see what I mean, the proof of it. And then finally, how to time travel into the past. By the theory of multidimensional reality, you can't go ahead in time because you don't exist yet, but you can go back in time. By the way, I'm still getting over the Chinese communist flu I had gotten back in August of last year. So if I clear my throat, please forgive me. I'll be teaching from a number of books. Obviously, Judgement, which is the basic philosophy behind what you're going to see. Theory of Multidimensional Reality, which is the third iteration of the theory. Now, Life After Life by Raymond Moody, and several other books like that has the stories of people who had died and come back. He's a medical doctor. The other two are also medical doctors. And we have creation of the Hebrew alphabet, which is key because of the Torah model. Living Past Lives by Wambach. And also I have some of her papers too, quite good. And then Thelma Moss's on curling photography, which I did cover in the previous Part 10 video. This is a creation by it's called Millennium Simulation Project 2 by the Max Planck Institute. What they did is they took multiple wavelengths from telescopes and radio telescopes of galaxies in the universe and came up with this pattern. Visible light, infrared, and ultraviolet light, X-rays, radio images. And they came up with this with multiple colors. Here's an example of what they do. This is an image from a radio telescope, that blue color. And this is ultraviolet. Here's a visible spectrum. The ultraviolet shows something really in great detail. Now, I've shown this before. I'm going to make sense of why these, they call them quasars, but really a quasar creates a galaxy, so I don't know why they just say quasars and galaxies. But anyway, they don't know why these galaxies line up. There's a reason why. This is not an accident or happen chance. This is by design. And you'll understand what's going on. Now, the atom and the electrons. The electrons are important for this whole discussion of time travel. Like I said in the previous video and also in video series 1 by the basic theory, how an atom comes into this dimension. As you add energy to it, whether it be kinetic energy, banging the crap out of the atoms like they do in an atomic and a hydrogen bomb, eventually, or you do with electrons, eventually this donut hole, this toroid, gets too big and it demodulates. Now what it leaves behind is the electrons, and this is an example, a hydrogen atom on the electron shell that it creates. All the real action center modulation point is right there. Now what you'll notice is that, and what I mentioned in the previous videos, that the beauty of the theory of multidimensional reality and information theory of existence is what goes on in the very small is the same program that goes on in the center of a planet or the center of a star. We do not have a solid iron core, just the picture looks good, so I used it. It's a center modulation point, and earlier videos I actually think I calculated to be either 20 or 40 miles in diameter. And it generates a tremendous amount of heat in the form of electrons because the atoms, or the information that makes up the atom, can't stabilize and become matter. It may pop into existence for a couple of picoseconds, but what it does leave behind is a bunch of electrons. And the electrons basically heat up when it gets far enough away from the center modulation point. Then you start having molten matter of all types, and then finally it cools down some more, but it's the electrons that are heating up these atoms. Same thing goes to the sun. There is no solid core here. And I showed the surface in the previous video and others is a boiling mass. Anybody who thinks that somebody lives on the sun is crazy. Question is, why hasn't our science figured out the polar reversals, the mechanism between you got an ice age, you got a polar reversal, and the Great Flood? They can't do it because of this, Aristotle. Like I mentioned in video series 12, part 1, which is very important. If you're a nuclear physicist and watching this, you're going to be unhappy or you're going to be extremely mad, but not at me, when you know the truth. So Plato, which is really a Jewish philosophy, you have the idea, or I could say the information that makes up an apple, and then it's manifested in this realm, in the third dimension or fourth dimension, as an apple. Aristotle, what was created in the books of Aristotle, was that they were both the same. The matter and the form, or the information, was one and the same. And I explained in part 2 why the Pisos did this. In other words, they had to change the science to agree with the religion that they were in the process of creating. Oh, the nuclear physicists should have known something's wrong. Like I showed in the beginning of part 10 and also part 1 of series 1. There was a lot of really big names in physics that knew something was wrong. When you have 153 subatomic particles and 52 theoretical ones, at some point you have to say, something's wrong. I have no idea what's going on, and be honest about it so you don't waste your time. This is the guy who you blame, Arius Calpurnius Piso. He actually commissioned this statue of Apollo, and he called it Apollo by Apollonius. Apollonius in Greek means son of God. Gee, I wonder who could that possibly be? Here's another one that's in the Vatican. It's all the same face. This is a marble statue of Plutarch, which is really him. Yes, he did write as Plutarch. This is him in later life as Numa Pompilia, and I explain in video series 1 and 2 why he took the identity of Numa Pompilia, who was the second king of Rome, but like 600 or 700 years before the Pisos. But I'm going to explain what I did with part 1 of series 12, is that basically I destroyed your foundation philosophy. Now, it doesn't mean that you're dumb and stupid. It's that you asked the wrong questions when you went to school. When your professor, there was a pretty famous physicist, was in his physics class, and he asked his professor, what is mass? And the teacher said, we don't know, and never asked that question again, which should have told everybody, I have no idea what we're doing up here. And that's what happened. So once you destroy this matter-oriented foundation philosophy, all theories and philosophies built on that will be wrong in part or in whole. So what they taught you in school, especially in particle physics, is totally wrong. Your degree may not be worth the paper it's printed on. That's not to say you're not smart. You are. You have math skills far better than I do. But the point is that we have all been fooled by the Pisos and the Catholic Church, which they created. St. Peter's Cathedral is named after honor Proculus, who was his youngest son. Now, I also want you to know, a lot of physicists or scientists are atheists, agnostics, and they laugh at the theologians, especially in the Catholic Church. But the leadership in the Catholic Church, Cardinal and Bishop to Pope, they were laughing at you because they knew what they did to you. They did to all of us. That's why we're within, I checked, 24 years, 8 months from this polarversal and cataclysm, and to many of us, our demise. So now you know who to blame. This guy and the organization he created. Okay, Raymond Mooney, MD, he interviewed a lot of people, hundreds. I think it was like 250 or 230 people. And they died, and then they were resuscitated and came back. And he interviewed them, and they had basically 18 common things. Now, all of them, not all of them were the same. I mean, obviously, everybody was different in a different way, but the 18 points I'm going to go through, some or all had all of them, all of these features of what they saw. Now, I want you to think, when I go through them, I want you to think in terms of what mechanism is necessary to make this happen for what these people are seeing. That's what I want you to think in terms of, the mechanism. 1, a loud ringing. Looking down at their physical body. I grabbed whatever pictures I could from the internet, but it gives some people an idea. Now, it further shows and proves this part. This is the phantom leaf and curling photography. I think it's a coleus plant that cut this part off before it touched the film. And if you do it faster than within 2 or 3, maybe 4 seconds, you can still see this phantom before the Diehold corrects it and it disappears. But this, you could say, the conscious part of the information, and here's the matter part. So you basically have 2 pieces of information, a carrier wave that makes you up or any living thing up, and the other one is the matter part that makes up the leaf. Traveling through a long, dark tunnel. That would be, some say a long, dark, and then a light at the other end. That may be the decoupling or demodulation of one signal in the same coordinates as the matter part. So that mechanism, I think, is what they're describing. Notice they still have a body, but different, with different powers. Some subjects have a globular, round, or amorphous shape. Others don't have a regular human shape. It may be a difference in how evolved you are. I'll cover that a little bit later. 5, meets past friends and relatives. Very common. Sees being of light. The only thing I came close to is ball lightning. This was, I think, in Germany. It's a video on YouTube. And actually, as the thing was, this is train tracks here. As it was crossing the train tracks, it was discharging a light bulb, and they went into the forest on the other side. They think this is really a plasma, which is, I agree with totally. Here's another plasma ball lightning. Cannot grab any physical objects. Of course not. You're just information now. Weightless sensation floating around. Their shape has density to it, made up of charged waves, an energy pattern. Back again to the theory of multidimensional reality. Here's a picture of an atom. I think it's the hydrogen. Here's the electron shell, and here is where the modulation point is, where the information is coming into existence. One of the guys says, some felt they were small, round ball, like a BB inside this round ball. Here, so you've got the center modulation point where his consciousness is coming in, but as it comes in, it creates a magnetic field around it. Magnetism you look at as information. Those who say they have a body, there may be an issue of how evolved they are between this and where your consciousness creates the image that you had before. Time seems to go faster after they left their bodies. I don't know how I explain that, but time is relative, and as you know, we're being brought into existence, the atoms are extremely fast, so evidently, maybe in that other dimension, time is going to pass a little faster. I was still thinking, just like in the physical life, though the thoughts were clearer and more lucid. I've said, even in Reality Revealed, the first book, that goes back 45 years, I think we do our thinking in that first dimension, in that Diehold. And we have a brain only because we think it should be there. But remember, we're a reflection of the universe that we're part of, and including our inventions are reflections of the universe that they are part of. So this is the Germans did a lovely job of mapping brain cells, and this is the pattern they came up with. If you think that looks similar to what the universe looks like, you're right. We'll cover that later. So in other words, the thinking part didn't go away. It was just clear because in many respects, the matter part of your brain, the neurons, have a delay in its creation. You know, the atoms have a delay, natural log e to the x. And our information has a delay. So the matter may act almost like a resistor and filter out some information. Once you don't have the matter part, that's why he's saying he's thinking clearer. Vision was enhanced. I could look anywhere and, anywhere and everywhere. Again, it's like if your information in a computer and you think you want to look at that, you could blow it up or go right into it or go someplace else to look at something. You don't have a physical body, you're grabbing the information that's already there in the Diehold. Hearing, pick up the thoughts of persons around them, ESP. Many of them said that they heard their thoughts before their lips moved. Okay, that delay is the delay in propagation, again, between the first and second dimension and the third. The being of light told some people that acquiring knowledge is a continuing pursuit. I'll agree to that. I may have spent too much time in my life doing that. During their life, the shape of your physical body is the main point of interest. In the afterlife, it is reversed. The mind and the acquisition of knowledge is the important thing. Seeking knowledge should also be an important goal in the physical body. That's the story of my life. I mean, didn't do too much exercise other than building a house and gardening and stuff like that. But I'm sure there's a happy medium someplace. I'm certainly not an example of that. Don't commit suicide and do not kill another person. It's on page 44 of the book. I got the feeling that two things were completely forbidden for me to do would be to kill myself or to kill another. For killing himself was like throwing the gift of life back in God's face, and the other one, killing someone else, was like interfering with what God's purpose was going to be for that other person. I wonder about Hitler, but that's another story. 3 points tell us something important about our existence and reality. These are my words. For someone to see their entire life played out in front of them means there must be a mechanism in the Diehold that records everything we do and see. That means it is repeated represented by another carrier wave containing this information. I skipped over it, and I shouldn't have earlier, but they all talk about it. It doesn't matter what religion you are, what ethnic group, whether you came from on this earth. It's all the same. That's why we're basically, this information and what I'm talking about is important for every living human being. So you understand what existence really is and what you are in relationship to this universe that we're part of. So I'm not kidding. That means there is a separate carrier wave that records everything we think, do, say, and see. And what they all reported was it was extremely vivid. It was like you're there, period. The ultimate VR. The only way these people could see themselves outside their bodies is if information that makes up our physical body is separate information than what we call our soul or sense. I covered that, and the phantom leaf effect basically shows that you have multiple carrier waves. One that makes up the matter part of your body, and the other one is what we call the soul or essence or consciousness. And that's what we're dealing with. In other words, we're in a created reality. This is like a hologram, but we call it physical. The reason the thinking process becomes clear is because we really do our thinking in the Diehold, and I covered that pretty good. By the way, here's another reason that we've all had deja vu. Every living human being has had deja vu. To define it is, for a brief second or two, you do something that you say, gee, I think I dreamt this, right? Or I did this before. And what really is happening is this. It proves, number two, that you're first perceiving the thinking in your consciousness in the Diehold, or whatever you're seeing and doing. It's usually an innocuous thing, even picking something up or looking for something. All of a sudden, my God, I dreamt this before. And it really is that delay in processing to finally, when your physical senses see something and then recognize the same thing what you were thinking or saw in the Diehold. That delay is what we've been calling deja vu. We've all had it. It's another reason, maybe sixth or seventh, that the universe is the product of information. Another nail in the coffin of the matter theory of existence. Okay, now we get into life after life and a mechanism. Here's brain cell connection the Germans did. Beautiful job. This is motor neurons of a human. Again, you notice there's bright spots and they're interconnected with multiple locations all around. This is the universe, exactly the same thing. These are some examples, about 6 or 7 I grabbed from the Torah, which begin to show about time travel. Genesis 16:7, Hagar the Egyptian handmaiden. Abraham got her pregnant. His wife Sarah wanted to kick her out and was given a hard time. So she meets an angel. Now remember, Abraham is living at the family homestead, which is the hill, which is Mount Sinai. I know where it is, and I know where he was. And supposedly, an angel could be anybody in modern clothing, goes back, that would have been 3,700 years or 3,800 years ago. And the natives there would say, oh my God, an angel. So, thou shalt call him his name Ishmael. He should be a wild ass of a man. And they say, this is actually true for the Arab world. Every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the face of all his brethren. They don't get along with each other, in other words. Genesis 17:5, neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham. Now you're going to see, why is someone going back in time and changing names? I mean, why? What's the purpose of it? Genesis 19:1, two angels come to Sodom. Actually, in the beginning of that verse, three guys show up at the entrance of Abraham's tent, and he knows immediately it's an angel's because they don't look like him. And he has his wife and maids prepare food for them and stuff like that. But two of them go off to Sodom, where we are told they level the place and kill everybody. So that's really interfering with the past. Don't ask me why. Genesis 32:29, thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. Again, why change the guy's name? We have a country called Israel. It's got issues with its neighbors and definitely with Iran. But again, why change the guy's name to Israel? Exodus, then I sent an angel before thee to keep thee by the way and bring thee into the place which I have prepared. I had mentioned this earlier in video series 10 on my discovery of the real Mount Sinai. But Moses knew the Sinai better than the back of his rear end. And he had been there for at least 59, 58 years, maybe 60 years. Remember, he left roughly when he was about 20, I think. So he knew the Sinai very well, and he knew how to go from what's now Elad all the way to where the mountain is many times. So why is God sending an angel to a place? You know, that's very interesting, and I go into it in video series 10, if you see it. Elijah. Elijah's an interesting one. The king of Israel is after him to kill him. He travels one day outside from Beersheba, going into the desert, sleeps underneath a broom tree. Then, quote unquote, an angel touches him and said unto him, arise and eat. Gives him water and a cake of bread. When they say cake, I think they mean bread. And then Elijah goes back to sleep. We don't know how long, probably a day, a couple hours. The guy taps him on the shoulder and wakes him up again and say, arise and eat. And then the Bible says, shortly after, 1 Kings 19:5, 6 and 7, I think says, they traveled 40 days and 40 nights. The 40 is a coded number. I explained it in Moses 10 Code Systems, both the book and the video. I think it's video 6. And if you watch it, you'll understand what the thing. So when it says 40, it really means 1. And again, someone came within 2 days' journey of that hill to go save him. And he goes there, and guess what? It says he found a cave. Gee, how do you like that? Now I get to my family's experiences. And this was stretched over 4 years. I own a company called Archive Index Systems, and I sold scanners, and I sold scanning software and document imaging software for Laserfish. Anyway, I had an appointment book. Here's one of my appointment books. And I'd have appointments, and I'd write down where I went and stuff like that. So in the appointment book, I've written down what we saw in the house. And I scanned it all in. You'll see the appointment book. And how many times this thing happened. Now, important part is how I got rid of all these things. The other part I'm going to say is this. There are unscrupulous people that wind up creating a story saying they're channelers for UFO, aliens, spirits. They never show proof of it. no videos, no nothing. And it's most likely people who are got a little problem upstairs and they want to be self-important, and so that's what they do. They make up a story and they sell a book and lectures. Of course, they love lectures. Mine are free though. Anyway, what you're going to see was stretched over 4 years, from 96, 97, 98, and 99. I finally got rid of them. Now, when did it start? My family went to Israel on April 7th, 96, came back, passport says, left Israel on May 2nd, got home by May 3rd. After that, sometime after that is when it all started. This is my house in Bellevue, Washington. There's the address. I designed it and built it. I did the flooring, the painting, some electrical, some plumbing. I mean, I did way too much and also ran a business at the same time. Don't ask me how I did it. But this is when we were selling the house. I sold it in July of 2015. Excuse when I'm clearing my throat. I'm still trying to get over this flu, this virus. Anyway, between we getting back from Israel to when I started writing this stuff down in the book, which is June 2nd, we had 2 sightings that I know of. My wife saw it first. It was an obelisk, gray thing like this, but it had a pattern like this, something like it, but the squares were smaller, and also I think the cone shapes were a little longer, maybe 3-4 inches long, and I believe it's more like an antenna array is what we're looking at. This is my bedroom. It showed up, dropped down from the ceiling, the width of the bed across here. Yes, I did the flooring and I put all the marble in the house, including all the bedrooms and bathrooms rather. Anyway, if you go on Zillow or Realtor.com, you'll actually see it. First thing I wrote down. Now, note the time that these things all happen. June 2nd, saw a male head in a pink color in the bedroom, like this. Now, Susie saw it. We also had a sighting, I think it was about the same time. This scared her. And after that, we had a couple sightings where it was like a picture frame and a clown face in there, just to make her not so scared. I wasn't, I was just annoyed. June 15th, 12:24 to 1:30 a.m. Both of us saw a light blue toroid above and left of me. It faded out and went through the wall. That happened more than once. June 20th, 12:20 a.m. A green toroid. I tried to model it on my toroid model of the alphabet. It had a lot more green thing. It was a brighter green also, like a Kelly green. And this thing was over my head, no more than like 3 feet above. And it went through the wall. I got up, ran around to the closet behind the wall. Didn't see it there. Then I ran down the hall 70 feet to the library, went outside, looked up to see if it was a UFO above the house. It's in June, so it was pretty warm in Seattle. August 17th. We both saw this object over our bed. This is mechanical stuff. I mean, this has got a function to it, just like the toroid does too. 26th. What was that, 9 days later? Same thing. Susie saw it. Same one as the 17th. Same thing. I saw a round object that first looked like it was a chandelier hanging from the middle of my bedroom ceiling. Again, 12:30 a.m. I saw it in the middle of the room between the 2 chandeliers I did have, this thing. It may have been the same thing that was in this, but it was already partially up into the ceiling. you'll see where they can go through walls and up to ceilings. So it's in another dimension, but for some reason we did see the things. Same thing here, September 1, well, one day off from my birthday. Same thing, it may have been the same kind of an object. This is where it appeared, some in this area here. The doorway here, we see a bunch of sightings here, and I'll show this later. But that's it, right there. This is where it all happened. Saw this round object in the center of the room, bedroom. So Susie walked in the bedroom and kind of woke me up, and there it was. October 4th, toroid again. So we have three different types of things showing up in the house in the beginning. The toroids, that thing that looks like like a chandelier, but it's not. And the obelisk. After 1 a.m., red toroid by our bedroom door. The door I showed you. There. We had quite a few sightings on the door. I don't know why. It may be after they did whatever they did to us. October 6th, 12:43 a.m. Both saw this round object outside our door. Looked like small flakes floating around in a round object. They were in a round thing, and you have a bunch of ribbons like floating around in there, moving around. My son saw this in the guest bedroom, which is next to the hall bathroom, near us. This shape here. Again, 6:33. That's kind of late in the morning, but yeah, he did see it and told us about it. October 13th, 4:30 a.m. I saw what Susie saw on October 6th at 4:30 a.m. Same thing. October 23rd, 11:55 p.m., almost 12 noon, 12 midnight rather. Susie sees a large map of something on the ceiling. She couldn't recognize what it was of, but not too many people see maps on the ceiling. I don't know why they did that. Susie and I saw multiple colored eggs or balloons, 10 inches to 12 inches high. This was in our entranceway, which I'll show you in a sec. 12:43 a.m. again on November 16, 1996. 1996 was a busy year. Saw many colored balloons and stuff like that. My son, December 7th, we went down to my mother's 80th birthday, and he was staying in my old bedroom in where I stayed in Canoga Park. It was, the address is 22500 Van Owen, and then it was Canoga Park, now it's West Hills. And he was staying in my bedroom, and he sees this object, a yellow color, 6 a.m. This is the whole entranceway. This thing in this area is just covered with these balloons hanging from the ceiling. No, don't know why. This was the guest room that he saw the other stuff. This is his normal guest room. My library is down here. January 8th, 11:40 a.m., Susie saw the red eggs outside the bedroom door. I saw about 10 4-inch red balls or eggs drop down from the ceiling in our doorway. Our doorway seems to be very popular for some reason. This is now 97, 11:14 p.m. The obelisk shows up again over her bed. September 10th, the grid pattern. David saw a plaid pattern moving in the hallway. Saw it for about 10 seconds. This here. This is his friend was sleeping in the living room downstairs on the sofa, and he winds up seeing this pattern. I had him draw it, and I saved it. And his name was Brian Schoenlieber, neighbor not even a block away, and saw the 12:30 to 1:30 a.m., September 27th. Now, he saw it in the doorway in the living room. I'll show you. This is where he saw it. The sofa was on this side here, against the outside wall. And that's where he saw it, late at night. I saw a spider web structure, a toroid, covering our bedroom door. And at first I put down spider web, but I later, you'll see in the next slide, I think it was really a toroid turned 90 degrees up. Sue woke me up when she saw 8 or 10 pointed star, where was it? Outside, on the ceiling entranceway. That was the entranceway in the house. This kind of looks like a spider web idea. If this was closer, it might be construed as by me as a spider web. But again, with a toroid. January 26th, 11:45 p.m., almost 12 midnight, Caesar saw a grid pattern on the bedroom ceiling. February 2nd, I saw a shadow in the hallway outside my library. At 12:15 a.m., Susie saw a white object in the hallway. I later saw a dotted pattern on the ceiling in the bedroom. There's the dotted pattern there. You can see I did the best I could, but there were more sightings. Some I just forgot to write down. And so, anyway, March 8th, 1998, 1:45 a.m. Susie saw a dark gray obelisk pass over her while in bed. A friendly obelisk that loves showing up sometimes. Susie saw a red ball on the ceiling about 8 inches in diameter. 1:16 a.m. October 17, 1998. We're almost done, by the way. Susie woke me up and we saw a bunch of short lines on the ceiling. God knows why. October 22nd, 12:45 a.m. We saw by the bedroom door ceiling a round group of short rods. I saw it for 6 seconds, like that. 1:02 a.m. Susie and I woke up, and at the same time we both saw a wire-like object. It's a toroid. And the thing then goes, I think, up into the ceiling out of sight once we woke up and saw it. It was in red. 1:02 a.m. November 9th, 1998. I went to bed at 4:15 a.m. I'm a workaholic, unfortunately. And then woke up at 4:30. I was like, go to bed at 4:15. Went to sleep. 4:30, I see a 5-foot diameter toroid in the hallway by our door. This is the same day, by the way. See, it says Monday. Happened then. So, I'm going to tell you, first, when these things were showing up, the reason why we're waking up, like once I remember, it was a bright green one, a toroid. It was just over my head and to the right. And you ever go to a situation where you go to sleep, you're out cold, and you wake up wide awake like that instantly? That's what happened many times. One really shocked me, really woke me up like that. So I don't know why or what they're doing, but it does something to your brain. And I think it's actually being done in the Diehold, not in my physical brain, I think, but I may be wrong. And it wakes you up. Yes. My wife is much more sensitive to this stuff, and sometimes she sees a different wavelength than I do. So this is how it was getting irritating. You can see how long it lasted. That's 3 years. The fourth one, another group. But I had to get it to stop. I didn't know quite how to. So I took a piece of copy paper, 8.5 by 11, and I wrote down this. For those of you going back in time to record your history, you have to pay. And I stuck it right there. taped it to my wall above my head. And you know something? After it went up, they stopped. This is 1999, 4 months later. Now, I went to Sinai in November 97 and November 99. So this is just before, a couple of months before we left. Susie saw this pattern on the living room floor. She was staying in the living because she was sick and she liked the sofa. She saw that. Susie and I both saw this pattern September 16th, 2 days later. Green in pattern. But it's different technology. It's like another group didn't get the memo and they still showed up. But it petered out. This is after we got back from the Sinai. We had a news conference. And in the days in Sacramento, we saw a 4-foot diameter toroid over a bed in the motel. So they found me. So you're looking at what I interpret as different civilizations in different periods of time in the future, going back in time and recording their history. Now, I'm pretty sure it's their history because why would they bother with me? That's one thing I said. In the beginning, I did write Reality Revealed. I had the philosophy. In 1989, I did find the 6 blank periods in space and figured out that's the number of years between polar reversals, the clock cycle. But I hadn't, and one of the things I had in the appointment books, it said actually, when they showed up, was when I figured out the last two letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So that's my proof because it's my experience of what happened to the whole family and my friend, my son's friend, of seeing these things in the house. After this, nothing. And so like for 15 years, we saw nothing else in the house that we know of. Either that or they got smarter how to show up and we not know it. But for 15 years until I sold the house in, I think it was June or July of 2015. After I moved to Florida, they still haven't found me here, thank God, because I like to get a decent night's sleep. But you can see what happened. This is my proof, and I've never shown this stuff. In fact, I haven't seen some of these appointment books and actually gone through them in over 22 to 25 years. I've told a very few people. One person, Tim Mueller, I told, and he's now seeing what I wrote down. So you all know I'm telling you the truth, but there was no communications from them openly talking to me or my wife or vice versa. It was just they were coming back to record something so sophisticated, I have no idea. I don't know if they read my mind, my wife's. We don't know. All we do know is they did show up, and after that sign went up, the toroid ones, the obelisk, the one that looks like a chandelier, and a couple others disappeared. The balloon ones also disappeared. I guess they all got the memo, or one group told another group, leave him alone. And I think that's what happened. Okay, now, time travel, how it's done. Like I said earlier, we are a reflection of the universe that we are part of. This is our brain cells. This is the universe. The reason why it looks the same, I want you to hear this if you're a physicist. It's the same program. You're dealing with information here. You're dealing with information here. The transfer and like a highway system. This here is an X-ray image of basically our Milky Way. Now, what's interesting, X-rays, when an excited electron hits an atom, it dislodges a bunch of electrons, excited electrons, and they go all in different directions there. They're non-directional. Now, in an X-ray machine, they have to funnel it with either strong magnetic field or they ground the thing, and only electrons going in one direction, in a certain direction that they want, will go out. There's nothing like that here in deep space. But look, these threads, these are communication lines, just like this, just like that. There's communications going on between these bright spots in our galaxy. Now, that's the next thing that's kind of a question to me. Oh, these galaxies lining up, aligning in a certain direction. This is an information highway going on. That's what this is. It's because of information. The question is, what information? What puzzled me is these bright spots, and also globular clusters and open clusters. An open cluster is like 29, 3,000, 4,000, 1,000, a couple of hundred stars, tightly grouped. This is supposedly the core is about 4.1 light years, or maybe even less than that. Here's a globular cluster. In fact, after 25,000 light years away, my database had only open clusters and globular clusters. They didn't bother with single stars. But anyway, what's interesting here is this. If you have 150,000 stars in this area, and the core is like 3 or 4, maybe 5 light years, and that's a gross estimate, by the way, then you'd have stars with a half a light year or 1 light year away from each other, or even less than that. And if a star gave birth to a planet, there couldn't be any life on it, because when the parent star novaed during the clock cycle, the cosmic rays would kill anything on the surface. But you got another star maybe a few months or a half a light year away, or 2 light years away, is going to fry you also. No life, except if anything developed inside the ground, could develop. No intelligent life. So the question is, why did God or the program create these things? This one, supposedly the diameter is 175 light years across. The core is probably about 20% of that. But again, 150,000 stars. It's not dark at night in the middle, in the center of this thing. So, by the way, on distances, Wikipedia had this thing at 55,000 light years. The astronomers, one group had 33,000. In short, it's a crapshoot. They're guessing. This one's about 25, real close to the 24,000. All these bright yellow stars here, I got news to you. I think those are stars that have novaed. Just imagine a timeline. You got a big round ball here, and the timeline goes past like this. Every star that's on that timeline is going to start novaing. And I think that's what you're looking at, the little bright stuff that are inside here, especially the reddish ones. This is what I think the globular clusters and open clusters were created. I had to go to computer memory architecture to give you the best analogy. This is a bit cell. N bits mean it could be 8, 16, all the way up to 512 or 64K would be 64 of these things, 32. So, and you have XY coordinates, but in order to address all this stuff, you have to have an address decoder. I think those globular clusters may be acting like the address decoder to locate the information. And the same thing goes for the other direction. You've got a bit cell array here, and you've got to have these bit lines in order to locate each bit. I think those globular clusters may be acting for that purpose. So we're back to the X-ray image of our galaxy. What I think is going on with these lines, it's basically the addresses and going to certain stars or planets that have information in it. Now, if you're going to say, okay, the center of the sun and the center of the earth has information there? No, this is the created side of this reality. When you see light, it means information, a lot of information. The information is in the domain of information that makes up a star or a planet. It's in that other dimension in the Diehold. We just see a tremendous ball of light, a center modulation point that's really hot. So this is the last slide, by the way. Going present into the past. You'd have to take your probe or a UFO, put a high voltage, high frequency around it that matches the carrier wave of the information that you want to go back in time for. Now, fortunately, this society does not know that frequency, and we're all grateful for that. So you go from the Earth to the sun. Now, if you're going to go past it, what's happening here, and you want to go someplace else in the universe is going on, I think this is the realm you wind up going to and trying to address it. Good luck on that. In other words, a seventh and eighth dimensional existence is really not what you'd call human any longer. It's part of the machine. And I think that's the reason why this Diehold was created by a very, very advanced civilization, to get an answer of how long it would take a six-dimensional being to basically give up the boredom of living so many reincarnations that he'd seen everything, and the boredom would drive you crazy, and give up, basically become part of the machine. Now, I mentioned that in the last part in Series 2 on the Hebrew alphabet. It seemed to be appropriate there. What does this tell us happened in our house? One, people from our future did go back in time to record their history. That sign definitely gave it away. At least I believe so. Two, this may indicate that my efforts to save people from this polar reversal and nova may have succeeded. Maybe many thousands of people and our technology may have been saved, so technology and learning continued. I don't want you people to go back to the Stone Age. You know, it wasn't too pretty for women at all, nor the guys either. Three, maybe my theory of multidimensional reality won out over the matter theory of existence, and some civilization in the future are using it to advance man's knowledge of our universe and who God's purpose is in relationship to the universe he creates. That's probably the most important part, at least I feel. For the atheists, they don't care. But for me, this is the most important part, because this is the key of understanding how the universe really works. Diehold Foundation to 501c3. If you want to send me an email, send it to info@Diehold Foundation. Contributions are tax-free. At the end of the year, January, I send off notices to people who contributed with the foundation's federal ID number, and you can deduct it. Anyway, I hope you learned something, or you're all in shock right now. But, and I am feeling better, but I'm still coughing somewhat. But this is a really important video. It now tells you what life is all about. Thank you.